The next topic is comparative figurative languages. Comparative figurative language is a term used to refer to any figurative language a writer uses to express a point by comparing objects to other objects. This is interesting phenomena. We know that figurative expressions are not actually true, but many do express some truth beyond the literal meaning. In West, for example, you hear somebody saying, "My car is a lemon." It does not mean that he is referring to as a car as a fruit or citrus. By referring to car as a lemon, it's explaining maybe the quality which is sour, or something which has to explain a car being defective. So when you listen to phrases such as "he is an angel" or "he is a prince," we know that a person is none of these. It is only that he is showing some kind of the qualities or the expression of qualities that is being referred to. So looking at that, the examples are that they are not literally truthful, but the qualities are compared to objects and also in some situations to people. The metaphor, simile, personification, and hyperbole are all types of comparative figurative language. So let's discuss all these types individually. First, we have metaphor, then simile, personification, hyperbole, and symbolism. So what do we mean by metaphor? And we have already discussed that. Let's try to understand the examples or other examples in terms of metaphor. So when we use a metaphor, we make a statement that does not literally make sense. "You are my sunshine." So basically, if you look at it, unless and until you know that it is a metaphor that is being used, this sentence will not make any sense. Metaphors only make sense when the similarities between the two things being compared are apparent or reader understands the connection between these two. Another example can be, let's say, "He has a heart of stone." So when you look at this kind of sentence, "he has a heart of stone," you know that it does not make any sense, that how can somebody has a heart of stone. But if you look at this and the relationship between these two, you know that, okay, the heart is being compared in terms of being rigid or somebody having a very fixed, rigid or strict personality. Coming to simile, which is again comparing of two things. For example, brave, lion. However, it is used in terms of words that join these two. So when you are looking at the sentences and looking at the similes that are being used, they are used with as or like. Brave as lion, busy as bee, clean as whistle. My mouth was as dry as bone. They fought like cats and dogs. So you have these joining words when you are using simile. Then you have personification. Personification gives human characteristics to inanimate objects, animals, or ideas. They can really affect the way the reader imagines things. Personification is often used in poetry, fiction, and sometimes in children's rhyme. The sun greeted me this morning. So basically, when you look at it, you see that it gives human characteristics to this object, sun. because human greets. So personification is the giving of human characteristics. Another example can that be of the sky was full of dancing stars. So, or the radio suddenly stopped singing and stared at me. So personification basically having the human characteristics to the objects, and this actually creates certain type of imagination in the mind of the reader or listener. Then you have hyperbole. That is an outrageous or exaggeration that emphasizes a point. Now, it is sometimes funny or ridiculous because things are presented in the form of exaggeration. So, you can say you snore louder than a freight train. Now, this is something which does not happen in reality. It is referring to the loud sound of snoring. Another example can be, you could have knocked me over with a feather. So this is again exaggeration, that with the help of a delicate object you could not knock somebody down. Another is the symbolism. When we are talking about symbolism, symbolism is something that occurs when a word has its own meaning but is used to represent something entirely different. Using an owl to represent wisdom. Now there are so many examples where symbolism is something which symbolizes. Chalkboard represents education. Red rose symbolizes friendship. Or again, these interpretations vary culture to culture. So you look at the color black, and to some it symbolizes darkness, to some it symbolizes education. So symbolism refers to the object which symbolizes certain categories. When we look at another example, a very famous quote by Shakespeare where he says, "All the world's a stage and all the men and women merely player." So stage symbolizes the world and the players represents human beings. So stage is something where when you are talking about stage, you're referring to a world around you, the world around you, and the players represent human beings. To conclude, the different types of comparative figurative language enable us to communicate wider range of meanings.